Welcome back to the garage, and it's time for another episode of the Token Teardown. And just in case you're new here, this is the only show on the internet bold enough to drag your favorite crypto project into the bay, throw it on the lift, shine a bright shop light underneath, and tell you flat out whether you're looking at a real performance build or something somebody slapped a badge kit on and prayed nobody would look too closely. And today on the lift, Quant, ticker QNT. And the real question we're answering is simple. Is QNT the Porsche 911 Turbo S of crypto, or is it just the base model pretending it belongs in the fast lane? Because we don't judge by the paint job in this garage, we judge by the engineering underneath it. Now, yes, we are going to talk price targets later. I know that's everybody's favorite lane. But before we get into the charts, before we start imagining how high this thing could fly, we got to figure out if it even deserves to be in your lineup in the first place. Because anybody can chase a green candle, especially that guy at work with the Robinhood account. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The dude who buys every pump 12 seconds before it dumps. At this point, he's funded more rugs than anonymous founders. But we don't do that in this shop. We don't chase, we don't guess, we inspect, we diagnose, we get to the truth. And speaking of the truth, big shout out to Triple X, the research animal himself. He's the one digging through the white papers, checking GitHub commits at 2 a.m., decoding enterprise documents, and finding the details even the founders forget they wrote. None of these teardowns happen without him grinding behind the scenes. Now, before we roll QNT the rest of the way up the lift, smash that like, hit the follow, and share this with your fellow Degens. We're building this channel one gearhead at a time. And if you've got a project you want to see up here, drop it in the comments. We read every single one, even the spicy ones. All right, today's teardown is a different animal. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's not powered by memes. This one is precision, quiet strength, purpose-built engineering. Ladies and generates, Quant, QNT. Let's clear the lift, get the gloves on, and find out if QNT really deserves a spot in your garage, or if it's just another glossy brochure promising big horsepower with nothing under the hood. Let's get to work. All right, gang, before we start wrenching on the details of Quant, we need to meet the crew that built this thing. Because this isn't one of those crypto projects slapped together by anonymous cartoon frogs or dudes hiding behind screen names like Crypto Wizard 69. Quant was built by adults, professionals, people who have resumes so serious they should come with their own torque specs. Let's start with the man holding the clipboard, Gilbert Verdian. This guy is the definition of overqualified. He's been the Chief Information Security Officer and Chief Information Officer for the UK Treasury, meaning he's the one making sure the government's financial systems stay secure, powered up, and not run by somebody's cousin in a basement. Before that, MasterCard, PwC, the Ministry of Justice, all the places where they don't mess around. But his biggest flex? He founded ISO TC 307, the global standard for blockchain interoperability used in over 70 countries. 70! He literally walked into the room where governments decide how digital systems should talk and wrote the playbook. This isn't a founder. This is an architect. Next up on the crew is Neil Smith, former CEO of Comcast. You might have beef with your Wi-Fi bill, but running a national scale network with millions of customers breathing down your neck every time Netflix buffers, that requires serious leadership. When a guy like that joins your board, it means your tech isn't some hobby project, it's infrastructure. Then we've got Guy Dietrich, a managing director from, wait for it, Rockefeller Capital. The Rockefellers, the name people drop when they want to sound wealthy in movies. If someone from that world backs your project, it's because you're building systems for big institutions, not a degen casino. Next up is Paulo Tosca, the brainiac economist. He's advised the UN, central banks, and governments on digital economies. This is the guy they call when they want to make sure money doesn't explode. He designs economic systems the same way Porsche designs engines, smooth, efficient, and ready for the long haul. And behind all of them is the Overledger engineering crew, the quiet ones, the heavy hitters, the people who actually build the pipes that make this whole thing work. These aren't hype guys. They aren't meme makers. These folks connect Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP Ledger, Corda, and Hyperledger Fabric the way experienced mechanics connect pressure lines, carefully, cleanly, and with zero drama. They don't scream online, they don't promise moonshots, they don't disappear for 3 months to work on themselves. They engineer, period. And the partners who trust this crew, not NFT clubs, not hype chains, not your cousin's token experiment. We're talking national scale networks like LackChain across 12 countries. Major UK banks, HSBC, Lloyds, Santander. Enterprise titans like Oracle. Financial infrastructure like Euroclear. And pilots from JP Morgan's JPM coin settlement systems. Christian looked at this whole roster and said, John, this isn't a pit crew. This is the Avengers with business cards. And honestly, he's not wrong. So yeah, this team, this is not your usual crypto circus. This is a pro shop, a real engineering floor, the kind of pit crew that builds things meant to last. Right, now that we know who built this thing, let's talk about what Quant actually is. And we're going to keep this simple enough that everyone gets it. I'm talking coders, gardeners, auto mechanics, your cousin who thinks he's a professional trader because he made $20 on Dogecoin, everyone. Here's the core issue Quant solves. None of the blockchains talk to each other. Ethereum lives in its own world, Bitcoin lives in its own world, banks run private ledgers, governments have their own rails, enterprises use completely different systems like Hyperledger and Corda. It's all fragmented, disconnected, like having an iPhone, an Android, a smart TV, an Xbox, a laptop, and a printer, and no Wi-Fi router. All the devices work individually, but nothing connects, nothing syncs, nothing communicates. That's what blockchain looks like right now. So what did Quant build? Quant built the wireless router for the entire blockchain world. You plug every device in, every blockchain, every network, every system, and suddenly they all work together. Ethereum plugs in, Bitcoin plugs in, XRP Ledger, Corda, Hyperledger, CBDC Rails, they all connect to the same network without fighting. But here's the part I need you to hear. It's not an add-on, it's not a bridge, it's not some duct tape workaround. It's a universal connector, clean, stable, and designed for serious workloads. Now let's switch analogies so my mechanics in the back don't feel left out. Imagine your garage has every brand of tool ever made. Snap-on, Milwaukee, Makita, Craftsman, Harbor Freight Specials, and none of them use the same socket size. Then someone walks in and drops one universal wrench on the table, and that wrench fits every bolt on every vehicle every time. Suddenly, the whole shop works smoother. That's Overledger. One connector, every chain, everything fits. If you're a coder, Overledger is write once, deploy everywhere. You build something once, and it works across multiple blockchains without rewrites, clones, or weird patch jobs. If you're a mechanic, this is one socket fits every bolt. If you're a gardener, this is one hose that connects to every spigot, no adapter needed. If you're an IT guy, this is one API that speaks every protocol. And if you're a normal person, it just means, finally, all this stuff works together. This is the first time the crypto world has a way to connect public chains, private chains, enterprise systems, and government rails cleanly, all plugged into one unified grid. And here's the most important part. Quant didn't try to replace any blockchain. They're not competing with Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, none of them. They're the wiring harness that makes the entire system run. Once you understand that, everything else in this teardown suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. All right, now that you understand what Quant is, the universal connector, the wireless router, the wiring harness that brings all the blockchains online together, let's talk about how this thing actually works under the hood. And don't worry, we're keeping it simple. No tech exam needed. Here's the key. Quant is not a blockchain. Not layer 1, not layer 2, not modular, not monolithic, not whatever new buzzword crypto Twitter invents next week. Quant sits above all the blockchains like an operating system. It doesn't care what chain you use. It doesn't care what code the chain runs. It doesn't care whether that chain was built last month or in 2015 by a dude mining Bitcoin in his dorm room. If it's a blockchain, Quant can work with it. The heart of the system is something called Overledger, and don't let the name scare you. Overledger is basically a super clean communication layer that plugs into all these different chains. It reads them, it talks to them, it coordinates them, it keeps everything in sync. For the coders listening, it's like having one API that can talk to every blockchain language ever created. For the wrench turners, it's like having one diagnostic scanner that works on every car: Ford, Honda, BMW, imports, exotics, no adapters, no headaches. For everyone else, it's like a smart hub that connects all the devices in your house so they actually play nice. Now here's where it gets wild. Quant didn't stop at just connecting chains. They built something called Fusion, which basically lets you run actions across multiple blockchains at the same time. Think of it like this. You press one button, and Ethereum does its part, Bitcoin does its part, XRP Ledger does its part, a bank ledger does its part. And everything lines up perfectly. No bridges, no wrapped assets, no sketchy middlemen holding your money, no hope this works moments. Bridges are the weak link of crypto. They get hacked constantly because they move your assets from chain A to chain B and hold them in the middle. Quant doesn't move your assets. Quant coordinates the systems. Your assets stay exactly where they belong, on their native chain, and Overledger just tells the networks what to do. If you're a coder, Fusion is like multi-threading across multiple blockchains. If you're a mechanic, it's like syncing 3 engines to fire in perfect timing without touching any of the engines themselves. If you're a gardener, it's like watering 3 different beds using one irrigation timer. Each bed gets exactly what it needs without you carrying buckets around. Quant isn't transferring value, it's orchestrating behavior. It's coordinating the entire multi-chain world from one brain, and this is why institutions love it. Banks can keep their private chains. Governments can use their secure networks. Public blockchains can run freely. Nothing needs to change. Quant just plugs them all together like Lego pieces and gives them one universal control panel. By the time you understand this part, the drivetrain, you realize why Quant doesn't need to compete with anyone. It doesn't matter who wins the L1 war. It doesn't matter what chain your favorite token lives on. Quant works with all of them. And that is how this machine actually runs. All right, now that we've cracked open the tech and you understand what this machine actually does, let's talk about the fuel system, the part everyone calls tokenomics, which is just a fancy way of saying how the money works. We're going to explain this so everyone gets it. Coders, mechanics, gardeners, teachers, that dude at work who still thinks SHIB is going to $1. Everybody. Here's what matters. Most crypto tokens, they're like gas stations that keep printing more gas every day, hoping nobody notices the fuel tank is flooding. Quant is the opposite. QNT has a fixed supply, exactly 14,612,493 tokens ever. That's it. No inflation, no random minting. No surprise, the team unlocked 200 million tokens and dumped on you. The whole supply has been unlocked since 2019, so the tank is capped. No new fuel gets made. But the real magic is how QNT is used. QNT isn't a hype token. It's not a governance badge. You don't stake it for yield. It isn't printed out of thin air. It's not the casino chips of the crypto world. QNT is basically the license key to use Overledger. Think about software. You want the premium version? You pay for it. Same idea here, but Quant is dealing with banks, enterprises, and institutions, not random degens spinning up yield farms at 2 a.m. Here's how it works. When an enterprise wants to use Overledger to connect blockchains, integrate systems, or run cross-chain operations, they pay in fiat. Quant takes that payment, converts it, and locks up the equivalent amount of QNT. Locked, gone from circulation, not traded, not floating around waiting to be dumped. If they want to run an Overledger gateway, a node that connects to other chains, they have to lock up even more QNT. So with every new client, every new integration, every new gateway, more QNT disappears from the market. No inflation, no dilution, more demand, less supply. It's the cleanest fuel system in crypto. And here's the part anyone can understand. If the world actually adopts multi-chain systems, if enterprises start connecting their networks, if CBDCs roll out, If tokenization becomes real, then QNT isn't just a token, it becomes the fuel that makes that entire infrastructure run. You don't buy QNT because you think it'll moon tomorrow. You buy QNT because institutions need it to operate the system. This is why Quant's tokenomics hit different. They're not built for hype, they're built for utility. Clean, predictable, no games, no gimmicks, just a licensing model where the more the system is used, the more scarce QNT becomes. That's the fuel mix behind Quant. Simple enough for anyone to understand, but powerful enough that institutions actually respect it. Now that we've talked about the fuel system, let's get into something that actually matters. Who's using this thing? Because I don't care how cool your tech sounds or how slick your white paper looks, if nobody uses it, it belongs in the bargain bin next to the crypto projects your cousin keeps insisting are definitely coming back. Quant is different. Quant isn't getting adopted by meme communities or random Discord groups. It's being used by people who actually move money, and a lot of it. Let's start with LackChain, a multi-country network backing real identity, real transactions, and real economic activity across Latin America. We're talking millions of users, not some 12 active wallets project pretending to be a revolution. Then there's the UK banking ecosystem, HSBC, Lloyds, Santander, in settlement pilots using QuantNet. These are institutions where downtime is measured in seconds and everyone panics. If Quant is in those rooms, you already know the engineering is serious. Oracle uses Quant, yes, the enterprise software giant that basically runs corporate America's back end. A company like that doesn't experiment, they integrate things that are stable, compliant, and ready to scale. Euroclear, one of the world's largest financial market infrastructure providers, also uses Quant Tech in digital asset pilots. This is a group that settles trillions with a T in securities. And you've got JPM coin pilots using Quant Rails to connect and public ledgers. JP Morgan doesn't just test anything, they have higher standards than Christian picking out a new Funko. Now that you see who is using Quant, let's talk about who isn't. Or more accurately, who's trying to do similar things and where they fall apart. People like to say Polkadot and Cosmos are interoperable. Sure, but only within their own ecosystems. It's like saying a Chevy key works great on Chevys. Try opening a BMW with it and see how far you get. Layer 0 and Chainlink CCIP? They pass messages between chains. Cool, useful, but they still rely on wrapped assets, middlemen, or movement between chains. That's the stuff that gets hacked every other week. These systems are mailmen. Quant is the entire postal service infrastructure, and none of them connect to private banking systems, government rails, or enterprise ledgers the way Quant does. Enterprises don't rebuild their whole tech stack to fit into someone else's chain. They use what already works, and Quant plugs into that. It's like everybody else is building fancy neighborhood roads, Quant built the highway system. So when institutions, and I mean real institutions, need a way to connect Ethereum to a banking ledger, or a CBDC network to a public chain, or government systems to enterprise rails, they don't reach for Layer 0 or Polkadot or Cosmos. They reach for Quant. Because Quant doesn't ask them to switch ecosystems, change protocols, migrate code, or rebuild their world. It just connects what they already have. And for institutions, that's the only thing that makes sense. Once you see what kind of players are actually using Quant, and once you see what the so-called competition is actually capable of, you understand why the biggest systems choose the quiet, boring, Porsche-level engineering every time. All right, now let's keep it real for a second. Every project, even the good ones, has obstacles, quirks, or things you need to keep an eye on. Even a Porsche 911 Turbo S needs maintenance, special tires, and a mechanic who knows what he's doing. Quant is no different, so let's run through the honest realities. First obstacle, enterprise adoption moves painfully slow. Banks don't move like crypto degens. They don't ape, they don't FOMO. They move like glaciers with paperwork. They run pilots, they run committees, then they test the test, then they test the test of the test. By the time they go live, you've already aged 5 years. So even though Quant's tech is enterprise ready, the speed of adoption depends on how fast banks, governments, and big companies decide to get off their conference calls and actually implement things. Next challenge. Quant is closed source at its core. Crypto purists hate that. They believe everything should be fully public, fully open, fully transparent. But institutions, they want stability, compliance, and predictable engineering, not a public coding playground. So depending on who you ask, that's either a problem or exactly why Quant works for serious players. Another obstacle, community hype is low. Quant doesn't have TikTok hype squads. It doesn't have meme armies. It doesn't trend every time someone posts a frog picture. The community is grown up, quiet, and patient. Good for long-term stability, but it means retail momentum doesn't hit the gas pedal as often as the more exciting tokens. Another thing worth noting, liquidity can get tight. Quant only has a fixed supply of around 14.6 million tokens, and institutions locking tokens doesn't help liquidity. Scarcity is great, but it also means the market can feel stiff compared to larger supply coins. And finally, the big one, execution risk. Quant is operating in extremely high-stakes environments, banks, governments, enterprise systems, and regulated financial infrastructure. If something breaks, people notice. If something fails, it's a big deal. But here's the reassuring part. Quant hasn't had drama. No hacks, no blowups, no we lost the treasury moments, no disappearing founders, no scandals. It's been boring, in the good way. So here's the truth. Quant doesn't have bright red flags. It has challenges, most of them tied to working with grown-up systems that move slowly but handle the world's money. If you're into wild hype cycles, overnight pumps, and daily drama, Quant will feel slow. If you're into infrastructure, long-term engineering, and watching pipes get laid for the future, this is exactly the speed you'd expect. Now, let's take a second to talk about the community behind Quant. Because every project has its own exhaust note, and this one is very different from the usual crypto chaos. Most communities in crypto are loud, non-stop memes, all caps messages in Telegram at 3 in the morning, people yelling "wag me" like it's a battle cry, and that one guy who buys every pump like he's speed-running bankruptcy. Quant's community isn't built like that. It's calm, professional, collected. Nobody's screaming, nobody's panicking, nobody's threatening to call the devs because their token didn't moon by lunch. These are people who read reports, follow enterprise pilots, track regulatory updates, and actually understand what interoperability means. It's like walking into a crypto community that somehow skipped the chaos and jumped straight to maturity. And that's the vibe. Quiet confidence, not hype, not noise, not chaos. Just people who understand they're holding something built for the long game, not the meme game. All right, with that said, all right, now it's time to get into everybody's favorite part of the teardown, the money, the price talk, the part of the show where your buddy at work magically appears behind you like, "Hey bro, what's the target?" And before we dive in, we've got to give a quick shout out to the head of technical analysis here in the garage, the one who does the charting, the trend lines, the Fibonacci squiggles, the whole deal. Lulu, you already know. She's been here since day one. Reliable, consistent, more accurate than half the influencers on the internet. All right, with the queen of TA watching over us, let's run the numbers. Right now, the entire crypto market sits around $3.1 trillion. Quant is trading at $95.67 with a market cap of about $1.15 billion. Now, let's simulate a world where crypto finally reaches escape velocity and grows from 3.1 trillion to a massive institutional scale 20 trillion total market cap. Here's what that looks like for Quant. First scenario, the calm one. Quant keeps its exact same dominance it has today. Doesn't outperform, doesn't underperform, just cruises with the rest of the market. A move from 3.1T to 20T is roughly a 6.4x expansion, so QNT naturally moves into the $620 to $680 range. Nothing wild, just steady growth, like the Turbo S gliding on the freeway in comfort mode. Second scenario, Quant steps up and gains just 1% market share in a 20T world. 1% of 20T is $200 billion. And with only 14.6 million tokens in existence, that puts QNT in the $13,000 to $14,000 range. This isn't hopium, this is math plus enterprise adoption. Now let's paint the moonshot, the full sin scenario where everything goes right. CBDCs roll out globally. Banks standardize on Overledger. Gateway usage explodes. Enterprises connect their systems. Fusion becomes the wiring under the world's financial racetrack. In that world, QNT stops being a crypto token and becomes part of digital economic infrastructure. That's when Quant hits market caps in the 300B to 600B range, which translates to $20,000 to $40,000 per token. Now, before anyone prints this out and tapes it to their fridge, we keep it honest in this garage. So here's the black swan scenario. Maybe regulation slows things. Maybe enterprises drag their feet. Maybe liquidity dries up. Maybe the entire market takes a nap. In that case, Quant could sit in the 150 to 220 range, or even retest the 95 to 100 zone if the whole industry stalls. Not doom, just the other side of the coin. Now, before you start refinancing your house to buy Quant, we should probably give you one little reminder. Just in case you're new here, our head of technical analysis, the chart whisperer of this garage, the creature responsible for half the predictions on this show, Lulu, is a pig. A literal pig. 4 hooves, a curly tail, a snout designed for rooting around in the charts, and somehow still more accurate than half the professional traders online. But no matter how good she is, she's still a pig, which means none of this, not the numbers, not the targets, not the moonshots, is financial advice. You've got to do your own research, you've got to think for yourself, and you've got to keep your wallet tighter than Christian when Funko releases a limited edition drop. All right, now that our legal department and Lulu are satisfied. All right, we've taken Quant apart piece by piece. We've looked at the team, the tech, the tokenomics, the adoption, the competition, and the price scenarios. Now it's time to lay it all out clean with the official Garage Dyno score. Here's how Quant stacks up across the things that actually matter in this shop. Technology comes in at a 9 out of 10. Not just clever, not just innovative, but genuinely needed. Overledger and Fusion solve a real-world problem nobody else solves at this level. Team, that's a 10 out of 10 without blinking. This isn't a team, it's a roster of enterprise killers and government-grade engineers. Tokenomics get a 9 out of 10. Fixed supply, no inflation, no emissions, and real utility that locks tokens as adoption grows. Cleanest fuel system in the industry. Adoption gets an 8 out of 10. Banks, governments, enterprises are rolling with it. But big players move slower than Christian shopping for a Funko he definitely doesn't already own. Narrative fit? 8 out of 10. Quant sits perfectly at the center of tokenization, CBDCs, interoperability, and real-world digital rails. Regulatory strength is a 9 out of 10. Doxed, compliant, enterprise-ready, and boring in the best possible way. Community lands at a 7 out of 10. Not loud, not wild, but smart, calm, and clearly here for the long haul. Average all that out, and Quant earns an 8.5 out of 10, a precision-engineered, enterprise-grade powerhouse that's built for the future and already running ahead of the pack. And with that, well gang, that's a wrap. Make sure you check out the website, gurucryptogarage.guru. It's free, it's clean, it's built for you, and we'd love to hear what you think. And most importantly, let it rip.